first things first, I want to congratulate both of you on opening weekend. The film has arrived, especially after 7 years in the making for you, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have so many questions for both of you, so I want to start with a joint question for both of you.
Sure.
A lot has been said about, the intensity of this film, the realness of this film, the rawness of this film. I'm curious about the quality in the other person that made you say, I trust you, I want to take this journey with you. Maybe starting with you, Brady.
I mean, I loved Adrien's work for years. I'm a cinephile, so I grew up watching Adrien's work, and so of course it was kind of no-brainer on paper for a variety of reasons, but also we met in 2019, and I don't know, we were really connected, and I've never had a project where I sort of needed the performer, or the main role to be as in lockstep with me on the project, just because of its length and the level of difficulty and the accent. I mean, the film was shot in 33 days, and it was a 170-page script. So it was a big challenge. So I knew that whoever I was doing this with, needed to really think like a filmmaker. And not everyone does. There's many people I know that are brilliant and very talented, but maybe not so practical. So I was just very touched by our initial conversation, and then eventually schedules aligned, and we were able to make it work, because the film kept falling apart, pretty well publicized now. The movie fell apart a lot. Mostly because of COVID, but also because it's a 3.5-hour movie about a mid-century designer. So it was a process, but it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Adrien, same question for you.
I mean, it's evident when you hear Brady speak. He's such a genuine, warm-hearted person with an immense understanding of film and life and art and literature and architecture and you name it. And I was familiar with Brady's work and loved our meeting. And first and foremost, I read the script that he and Mona Fastfold, Brady's partner and partner in life and writing partner on this, had written. And to be honest, even if Brady wasn't so fond to talk to, I would have probably said yes, because it's such a beautifully written role, and it's taken forever to find this, and they created it. And so usually if someone has the depth of soul to create something like that on a page, you know that you're going to be working with someone who has great potential to elevate your own work. And I just love Brady as a person, and we met, as you said, about 5.5 years ago, and I had been longing to do this movie since.
Yes. And there's so much that I want to dig into about what both of you just said. You did also mention Mona, who is Brady's partner, an amazing writer and director who co-wrote the script, and she is here, so I feel like we should give her a huge round of applause.
She's hiding. She's in the restroom. Oh, I'll tell her. She's here.
Screw it.
Okay, but I want to dig into, obviously, the character, the last love of it all. Because I have a feeling a lot of people will be Googling, Lazo Talk real? He is fictional, but he's so fully, he's so fully realized. And I know you've spoken about this a bit, but he is inspired in part by some real architects. If you could tell everybody here who inspired it in part and why.
Yeah, I mean, the sort of jumping off point many years ago was a book from a small press called Marcel Breuer and the Committee of 12 Village Church, which is about is a memoir from a monk at St. John's Abbey that wrote about Marcel Breuer, who was a Hungarian Jewish architect that was commissioned to design and erect St. John's Abbey in the late 50s. And there's sort of, allusions to the sort of microaggressions and anti-Semitism that he was facing at that point. And so that book really, of course, having seen the film, you can see how that memoir informed it. But it's also, it's an amalgamation of Paul Rudolph and Mies van der Rohe and Laszlo Moholy-Nagy and many of the great Bauhaus designers and Brutalist architects.
Yeah, I started reading that book after you had mentioned it in another Q&A, and if you really love this film, that book is an amazing, almost like companion piece, and it helps.
Absolutely. Or I guess this is a companion piece to it, but it's it's not a very, it's sort of a pretty dry text. It's not a very emotional text, but it's really compelling. If you're into, I was super into it, obviously. Check it out.
It's a matter of fact, but it's super interesting. I wanted to ask you, Adrien. You have a strong cultural connection to this story. Your mother is the amazing photographer Sylvia Fahey, and I read this quote where she talked about coming to the U.S. from Hungary at 13 with a suitcase and a teddy bear, which is such an evocative image, and it's so wild to think about. Can you talk a little bit about your family history and how that maybe inspired you to take on this role?
Sure. Some of you may know my mother's work. She's a wonderful New York photographer. She mentioned Sylvia Fahey, and she's a big force in my life as an artist, and there's so many wonderful parallels that have provided great understanding, and it's been a real honor for me to represent her story and my grandparents' struggle in a way as Hungarian immigrants. They fled Budapest in 1956 during the revolution, and they ended up as refugees through Vienna and came to the United States, to New York, and there's so much about this is really, I grew up not only hearing Hungarian and beyond the inflections and the dialect itself, but personality-wise and characteristics that my grandfather had that are so intimate to me that I was able to recount and actually hunt down with my dialect coach and finding period-specific dialect from the 50s. So it gave me a real rooted starting point. And then there's just so much that's so intimate about loss and understanding of that, and understanding of being different, and it's very hard to assimilate when you sound different, and this is a country built on and benefited from immigrants, yet it's very hard oftentimes for immigrants to feel like they are equals, and it's something I'm connected to. And also her journey as an artist, which Laszlo's lived experience mirrors that, mirrors Brady's experience, mirrors, any artistic yearning and desire to not be forced into compromise and to leave behind a body of work. And my mother's whole life's work has been to connect and share imagery that speaks to so much in this world around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of imagery that really represents the story that we're about to be taken on, early on in the film we see the Statue of Liberty, and it's upside down. That really struck me, and I've been so curious about where that image came from for you, and what it was like shooting that.
Yeah, all of my films have had sort of a moment, sort of these stylistic flourishes, I guess, where a camera behaves really erratically. My cinematographer and I, on our first project together, The Child of the Leader, built a sort of a hamster ball for the camera that we sent through a crowd at a fascist rally in the late 1930s. And I think that it's a bit tricky. It's sort of like telling someone exactly what a poem means, right? And the film is guided by a poetic logic, and David Lynch especially notoriously refuses to explain the movies, and it's a public facing decision actually, because he doesn't want to destroy the magic for viewers. My favorite films are films that continue for many days, ideally even years, beyond the moment that the credits roll. So there are always things that I leave a little bit inconclusive intentionally. They can be a little bit nagging. It can even be a little bit obnoxious, but the film never dies for you. And I think that, and I love that experience you have when you really become obsessed with a novel or a piece of music or whatever that is. That doesn't happen very much, especially as you get older. It happens more when you're in your teens. So all I can say is that I suppose it's meant to express a sort of the nauseating, sort of dizzying, nauseating, dizzying feeling for history, and that it's something which is unresolved, and it's something that is still very much in progress, and that that things are not necessarily as
standing as they should be.
They're not as standing as they should be, especially as we are awaiting the inauguration in 25 or 30 days. These things are on my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that answer as much as I was asking you to explain the poem.
No, don't worry.
No, I love that. But you also, I mean, you just mentioned something that I would love to get into, but it's something that my sister and I talked a lot about after this film was, it's a period piece, but it is ever present and ever topical, the topic of immigration, and I was curious for you just to expand on that a little bit more about what you were trying to explore with this film in particular.
I just think it's, for better or for worse, it's an eternal theme. It's a theme that will never not be relevant, and I think that when you are going to devote many years of your life to making a movie, you need to make something that's going to be relevant by the time it actually is released. I mean, I didn't expect it to take quite as many years as it did, but I knew that the film's themes would be relevant to me even if it took an additional 15 or 20 years to make it.
Absolutely. Something that you did mention as well was your collaboration with your amazing cinematographer, Lowell Crawley. This is your third feature with him, and shot on this vision, which many people have talked about and have celebrated about this film, like fully in this vision. What were some things that you guys were able to do on this collaboration that you maybe couldn't do with past films?
I tried to do my previous movie on a large format, but unfortunately the powers that be just really wouldn't allow it to happen. Which was a shame, because actually, obviously it's great, but at that time, I wasn't producing my own projects, and that's been an important evolution in my career as a filmmaker, that I am in charge of moving sand around in the box, and I make decisions about how we're spending our money, and so, I actually would encourage, it's funny how few film schools really teach film students about, about line items and how much things cost, and that's actually the most important piece of the puzzle. When I started off, I made my first movie. It was in pre-production when I was 24, and I was in production when I was 25 on my first feature, and I didn't know. I just didn't know how much. Especially I didn't know how much a film would cost. And thank you, Auntie. 5-minute warning for my daughter and her best friend. I get that at home too. So you know, but I really, I mean, you know, something that's important to me in the long run is really to create a healthier ecosystem for, you know, young filmmakers, independent filmmakers, and really start to educate people about how much things cost. Because, you know, how is anyone supposed to know? And in fact, filmmakers are not encouraged to find out, because they're like, you just focus on the creative stuff and don't pay attention to the fact that, you know, 30% of your budget is being spent on our fees. And so so that's a really important thing. So it is possible to make a film of this scale for $10 million. We did it. But I think a lot of people are making movies in a very, very different way.
I can ask so many more questions about that. But I do want to ask Adrien too. I mean, in lieu of Felicity Jones not being here, I was curious if you could talk a little bit about the special relationship between your characters in this film, what it was like working with her, and how you built that trust to go where you guys went in this film.
Felicity is just such a wonderful actor and brought you know, great complexity to that character. It's interesting, I don't talk about it very much. I mean, it's, she, you know, in many ways, she is the foundation and pillar of strength in their relationship. Even though she's physically disabled, she's the one that is holding Laszlo up. And, you know, that component, that partnership, that partner in a life partnership is so essential also for an artist and an artist's vision and ambition to endure. And, you know, I speak about my mother every day about this because of the very direct parallels. But my father is very much like that, which has supported my mother and myself. And in my own pursuit as an artist since I was a boy, and encouraged that. And neither my mother or I would have the careers and creative space to have done that. And that's another parallel in my life that I'm very familiar with, and that Laszlo would probably have self-destructed by the intermission right after that. Had there been no Elizabeth to come keep him afloat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'll squeeze in a tiny question about the epilogue before we run out of time. I'm curious for you, when you were like, this is the right choice. I want to let the audience know how his life unfolds a little bit, and then want to ask you to follow that with like what it was like for you inhabiting Laszlo in that phase of his life that it started with.
We were subverting a lot of very classical tropes. I mean, you know, okay, you know, and here he is at the end of his life, and look at everything he built. But in fact, I've sort of, you know, been saying to viewers that for me, ecstasy is always accompanied by agony and vice versa. And it was important to me to feel that this character was sort of physically present for the celebration of their work, but was sort of, you know, it's sort of, the success comes too late. I mean, most artists don't experience great success in their lifetime. And, you know, or you look at a painter like Rose Wiley or something who's in her 90s and is just now starting to sell a Gagosian, you know. It's this kind of strange thing, because it's sort of like, well, where was everybody, you know, and all the years leading up to this. And even with the reception of this film, which has been so wonderful, it's very funny for my wife and I, because we're like, well, we've kind of always been doing this, you know. This is what the films have a lot in common, and they're very much, you know, part of the same, you know, tapestry. So I just thought that here he is, and his wife is gone, and he's not really able to enjoy it, actually, and so the whole part of the film is about many things, but I thought it was important for us to get all the way there. I don't like when films are just evasive, like just cuts to black. I wanted to go all the way with this character.
Yeah, you absolutely did. And then Adrien, how
I can reflect on that briefly. Yeah, it's funny, I had not thought about this, but if you look at all the amazing brutalist structures that exist in this world that still somewhat remain intact, a lot of them have fallen to disrepair. A lot of them are kind of shells and remnants of their. Wrap it up. I'm getting the wrap it up sign.
It's not his fault. I was jabbering.
Yeah, that's what I was jabbering. It's not his fault. But there too lies a parallel where he's depleted, obviously, and has given everything that he can, and these structures live on, and that's part of his mission. But as Brady says, it kind of comes at a price, and you witness that, and it's bittersweet, but there is something there with the partially dilapidated remnants that still hold a great deal of beauty, and are monuments to that era and very brave architectural movement, but are somehow lost in the process, aren't maintained, aren't loved, aren't nurtured. And he's at the tail end of his existence, but he gave everything, and he witnesses it as you witness it in a way. Almost he's kind of back with you, reflecting on as much as he can what his life's left behind.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.